Welcome to the Transform Sales Podcast, where forward-thinking business leaders come to share their experiences and ideas, learn from each other, and amplify their results together.
Hey guys, Amir Reiter here with the Transform Sales Podcast. Super excited to have my guest, CEO and founder of Leadium, Kevin. Kevin, how are you today?
I'm doing well. It's great to be here.
Kevin was also, I didn't know this, and many don't know this, but you're one of the founding members and founders of Science with a C, one of the largest outsourced B2B companies. Probably got a lot of stories to tell. We'd love to kick off by just kind of knowing your journey. What got you into what made you found Science and later create Leadium? Let's dive right into that.
Yeah, the sped up version, because I've gotten really good at this, is my background is in tech. I was a project manager for a design team for an Australian company that came over to the US in 2012 and listed on NASDAQ. That kind of got me the bug a little bit in tech. I moved from DC to New York to San Francisco to LA, chasing a couple different tech companies back in that what was much different boom in 2012, 13, 14. Throughout the kind of that process, I had a myriad of roles, from project manager to a success manager, which I was in for a couple years. And success kind of makes you think about product, especially the early days of product, a little bit differently than maybe the product team or the sales team or even leadership, because you're kind of dealing with, what did we sell? Oh, we can't execute. What do actual people want? What do they want to see out of the product? And then it kind of led into sales. What I realized was, who cares about product? Who cares about success? Who cares about everything if you don't have sales and customers? So that was kind of the journey to kind of digging into sales. That's when
Did you just to dive into that, did you see people that built amazing products that neglected sales and failed?
Yeah, the first tech company, which moved from Australia, Perth, to Washington, D.C., a company called Reckitt and Moco Social Media. We raised $20 or $30 million to do that NASDAQ listing. We were delisted off of NASDAQ within 16 months. We burned through $25 to $30 million in a year and a half or 2 years. It was kind of that heyday of capital raise and living it up, but we really didn't have a product that could execute. It was in the collegiate intramural space, and the product was, a baby compared to what it was being sold as. And that kind of combusted the company from within. Is, hey, you're driving interest and you're getting some sales. You don't necessarily have a product to back it up. Those customers are then churning, especially if you don't have a great revenue model to retain customers. You kind of churn them out, and that kind of combusted.
So just a disconnect between the VC funding, the product, and what the customers really want. You got to sit in the middle and be like,
Yeah, I have that first kind of experience. I had the Hollywood, movie you can make out of it, which is lie to investors,
Andreessen Horowitz,
on
the Thanos. There's a show called
exactly
the
first class plane tickets, everything, and it was kind of a shield. So I saw everything not to do in that company. And that's kind of when I started joining some tech companies in San Francisco and New York, and you start to see how things are done a little bit differently, but there's still some shrouded reality on what's being sold, what can be delivered, how do you bridge those gaps with a success team, and kind of still drive the needle forward. So that's kind of what led me into sales, was just the realization that, hey, your company will fold. There's no way you can employ people, build product, continue to do great things if you don't have revenue, and fundraising only lasts so long until you actually start
pay back investors.
Right. Yeah. Exactly right. So that led to sales. Yeah. And being me and having that kind of entrepreneurial mindset throughout the tech companies, I didn't just want to go work for one company. Kind of wanted to do things on my own. That's where I met my co-founders, and we started a company at the time in 2014-15, was one of the first sales agencies that's really become normalized today. You see a lot of SDR, appointment setting agencies. Back in 2014 and 15, it was kind of revolutionary. I know CloudTask was a bit in that space back then too. There was only a few of us big players. Outreach was not Outreach, SalesLoft. SalesLoft used to be almost known as a product called Cadences, where they actually had a data company and it wasn't an automation platform. They pivoted during that time frame. A lot of the tech that we know of today and that these SDRs know of today, from Gong to Sendoso, didn't even exist in like the 2014 era. And so we were all leveraging that idea of, hey, this SDR space is about to skyrocket. And how do we become kind of an agency for clients? And that's where we first launched a company called Leadware. We built that, Leadware. We built that up pretty heavily, and that's when it was acquired and transitioned into Science in 2015-16. And that's when Sergey and myself decided to leave after that exit and say, sales is not scalable. That's a myth in this space is, hey, can you scale, sales? Can you build a repeatable process? Impossible. I think that's one of the biggest myths out there. And that's what Science was trying to do. That's what a couple players are trying to do, is just build that factory floor of a BPO for just get in, make phone calls, send emails, just mass, and you'll build a pipeline. But what I preach now to any prospect we bring on is, hey, every company, your product's different, your market's different, your go-to-market, how you evaluate sales, how you evaluate knowledge about your market versus just pipeline. You measure things inherently different, and that just makes it not
one size fits all.
Exactly right. So that's why we designed Leadium. It's to be a little more specific with how many customers we bring on, not to try to scale the operation. And the number one thing is you want knowledge. Like, you have to have knowledge when you're building and executing a program, and knowledge in the sales space is the hardest thing to scale, because if you're good at sales, you're probably making $250,000 or more at a sales org and maybe only working 4 or 5 hours a day. Yeah, or more, right? I saw, Salesforce paying enterprise AEs over $1 million.
Like the person who closed American Express, which was an inbound lead, right into the multi-million-dollar deal. Time to go IPO. We want to buy, right? So, so you're falling into some of the questions I want to ask. But before I get into it, I want to make a statement. I've known you for maybe 6 years now, right? I think we were at the time, CloudTask was a service company like Leadium, and we were very friendly with each other, always talking about how the industry can improve and how we can help people better. I took the plunge of turning into the world's first B2B lead gen marketplace, right? And it was only natural that Leadium became one of the top 20 first agencies in our marketplace, right? And it's been an honor to work with you thus far. And kind of flowing into all your experience, I think you're the best person to ask. I think right now, what people don't talk about in our space is what not to do, right? I think there's a lot to learn from what not to do. And I think sometimes it becomes challenging as a service company to tell people what not to do, because they become a little adversarial, right? And sometimes people don't want to know the truth, right? But on this podcast, they can't hide from it, and we're gonna talk about it. And I want to get into, I don't want to put a number on it, top 5, top 4, top 3, whatever feels natural. But I just want to know how you rank it, because you've seen hundreds of customers. You've been a founder of one of the largest B2B companies. You own one of the top agencies in the market today. What are some of the top reasons that people fail when it comes to ultimately hitting their expectations of being happy customers, right? If we backdoor, happy customer into them actually getting results. Let's start with number 1. What is the top thing you see the top mistake people make when buyers are looking to find agencies and hire them?
Yeah, it's
a lot, right?
It's a great question. There's a lot to unpack in it, especially when buyers are looking at agencies in this space. Because look, agencies aren't going away anytime soon. I'm actually a firm believer, an unpopular opinion, but I think SDRs will go away. I think the role itself will be transitioned into much more of a top of funnel strategist and team management, junior AEs. Look, the fact is, you and I know very well, but you get clouded in this market by following LinkedIn gurus who come from unicorn tech companies and have billions of dollars when they IPO and, have $100, $250 million fundraising rounds. And that's what we hear. And that's the world we live in. Look, as an agency, you get kind of diluted because 95% of businesses in America are small or medium-sized businesses that you would never know of, that don't play in the same space, that don't have the money and the resources, the revenue and the time to do what tech is doing. But not a lot of people kind of stand back and realize that. And a lot of those same businesses aren't big on LinkedIn because, again, they just don't have, they're operators. They're not kind of gurus.
They already have
by
product market
nature.
fit. The wheels are
They don't have marketing dollars.
The whole SDR position was created by Salesforce, and they had too many inbound leads. They had so many inbound leads because it's Salesforce. It was product market fit, no competition, thousands of inbound leads. They created the SDR position to qualify leads. It is turned into something completely different than it originally was in that book, Predictable Revenue, between you and I.
Right. Exactly. Aaron Ross kind of started in 2014 and 15. That's what we all touted, right? Aaron Ross is making
like, how do we qualify leads and how do we get junior AEs to take a lower salary and then promote the good ones? Like, that was it, and it turned into this whole thing.
It's a genius. I mean, predictable revenue, and you were back there in 2014. Predictable revenue was the backbone of our agencies, right? We all touted this is the idea: create a predictable pipeline, create a conveyor belt of sales development, and make it predictable. The fact is, it's the biggest myth in the world. I think in book number 2, he comes out and says there is no predictable pipeline. You can't create you can't predict market, right? Let's talk about COVID. How do you have a predictable pipeline when you have COVID? Let's talk about the market today. How many layoffs are happening? Fundraising isn't happening. Is your pipeline predictable anymore? Hell no, it's not. Right. And so, okay, what we realize is you can't have a predictable pipeline. I think if we rewind a little bit, and if you're reviewing kind of agencies, one is not having a clear understanding of ROI for what you're looking for. I think that's the biggest.
So let's pause this. Number one mistake you see buyers coming in, not having visibility into their ROI.
Yeah, and what I mean by that is, I break it down like this. Agencies and internal SDR programs are not held equitable, right? For some reason, if you have an internal SDR, you're willing to work with them maybe for months when they're not hitting.
Basic tribalism. It's human nature. It's
human nature, because if there's a person there, they have a family, you have a responsibility to them, you want to help them succeed, you want to do all of this. But if you take all of that out of it, most organizations, and I talk to a lot of companies, most don't know how much it costs to execute one SDR. And what I mean by that is, let's talk about all the time it takes you to recruit and to interview, to hire, to train. And when I talk about train, you got to remember, you have to allocate trainers' time, so the person who's actually doing the training, as well as the SDR's time. Right? Right. So you have to factor out the technology aspect of it, how much tech is going into it, benefits. What about time off? If it's 1 week, what about maternity or paternity leave, which will be a serious item? What about all these things? What about what you don't know how to measure is, hey, we understand the payroll costs for 1 week or 2 weeks of paid time off, but you can't realize the opportunity cost on pipeline had that person been there for those 2 weeks. How much revenue could they have potentially generated? It's almost impossible to analyze. So most organizations, one, don't know the cost of of a SDR. All they're looking at is top of line revenue. How much revenue was created?
You don't get fired for hiring IBM. That's the whole saying.
Right. Exactly right.
The emotion is we need to hire SDRs and put a moat around us, right?
We need sales. So how do you get sales? I don't know. Let's throw things at it. I think that's why Zoom Info, which I think, unpopular opinion, is probably one of the biggest scams in the world right now. Like, if you have use it or lose it data credits, why? If I licensed you for 5,000 data credits, they shouldn't expire every month. You should roll over to the next month.
I had a bad experience to Connect and Sell, that same thing, man.
Exactly. So
expire, never bought from them again.
But what you're doing is you're capitalizing on people's need for revenue. I don't know how to analyze ROI, but I know I need revenue. How can I fix it? Everyone's saying SDRs, okay, yada, yada. But when that same company is evaluating an agency, suddenly completely different lens. I need you to book 15 appointments, and I need you to book 15 appointments every month. Well, what about market conditions? Like, what happens if we go through, well, you better figure out a way to book 15 appointments. Well, But that's not how it works. That's not how a sales development pipeline works. But suddenly they're valuing it on meeting booked instead of, hey, we're setting up a repeatable process. We're learning about our market. What we're bringing you as our potential go-to-market messaging actually isn't resonating in the marketplace. Hey, we want you to be responsible for 15 appointments because we need sales, but we've never done outbound and we don't know how many appointments we should be setting.
We don't know our conversion rates. We don't know our closing rates, right?
We don't know anything.
15 meetings at 20% closing. It's is that better than 10 meetings at 10% closing? You know, like that they don't know the math. So I want to pause.
Yeah.
I'm listening to you and I hear you loud and clear. But it's also a combination of things, right? So let's start off from the beginning. You mentioned that they don't know their ROI, right? I will also add to that they don't even understand that their financial plan did not include an ROI. If you raise the Series A, B, C, D, you are not telling your payback is 25 months. They literally go to investors and say, give me $10 million, I'll spend $10 million, I'll make it back in 25 years. So not only do they not know their ROI, they don't even realize that they made a plan that told everybody, they told the world, we're going to burn money to make it back in the future, right? Then they want an ROI on, they tell you our sales cycle is 9 months and 6 months later they want an ROI because I've seen this every day. So let's just tie this up. Number one thing is no awareness of the financial model and how that's built into the go-to-market model. We could say that, right?
No awareness of sales development and the value that sales development, when done right, can drive an organization outside of appointments, which obviously it's sales, so everyone focuses on appointments, but there's very little awareness of the value of a great sales development program. And I mean, you mentioning it. Hey, our sales cycles
back a year later and say, hey, we want to outsource sales because we just got $1 million sale and it came from an SDR from an outsourced agency we fired 2 years ago. Right? Yeah. Same thing. And then they want to come back.
Look, it's this weird, and I've been in it for 8-9 years now. And Sergey, who's my co-founder, and I, we oftentimes talk like, hey, do we just get out of this industry? Like, it is such a slum. Like, the expectations are over the top. The time that you have, if you hire a new employee, you're giving them months of ramp up time. Again, that human nature of I need to make them successful.
When you hire an agency, basic tribal stuff.
When you have an agency, you expect us to deliver in 14 days, which it's a wrong expectation. You're setting yourself up for failure right from the top. And it's only in this sales world, I found it out because we hire a lot of agencies for marketing, and we've paid and we do a lot of R&D across different agencies, across different industries. You might spend $4 or $5 grand for a marketing agency to build your LinkedIn brand and your blog brand. And for $4 to $5 grand, which is arguably the same price for a lot of sales agencies out there today, you get 2 LinkedIn postings a week for your personal brand, and you get 2 blog posts. And by the way, ROI is who the hell knows, and the number of increased followers is throw a dart at the board. We don't talk about any deliverables. We just talk about you got to be consistent. You got to build your brand. You got to just do it. Results will come, hopefully, one day if you just keep paying us. It's like that SEO. How do you measure SEO and the effectiveness of it and how great that agency is doing? It's very difficult. But a lot of companies just on the marketing side have that knowledge of, okay, ROI might never be measurable and it might take years.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, it's basically like the principle. First of all, we can both agree sales and marketing, they're basically tribal terms in general. It's all revenue and they're splitting. So basically marketing gets this pass of we're creating awareness, we're creating viewers, we're creating clicks. We're creating this spat. Sales is getting this. Did you storm the beach? Did you overtake that bunker? And if you didn't take that bunker, try right up that bunker. You have no weapons, right? It's like a World War II analogy, right? So basically, let's unwrap this. They don't have a plan, and they don't even understand their plan. Then they're comparing the plan that they don't have to internal versus external, completely different. So right off the bat, you're fundamentally flawed. Like, you just can't be happy if you don't have a plan and you don't even know your go-to-market plan or your financial model, and then you consider that an internal SDR is different than agency. right off the bat, 1 and 2. I will agree with you on that one, Kevin. All right, I wouldn't if I would. Then
that's
off
great.
the bat, there's another problem. The other problem is that they're coming up with a number from what they heard their friends. How many meetings your friends make a month? 15. And guess what they don't say? You know what they don't say? You know what they don't say. Those 15 meetings were people who filled out forms on the website. So you got companies, they fill out forms. 15
look,
meetings.
I think Bridge Report, and I don't know the exact numbers, but I want to say that their average SDR, and I don't like Bridge Report. I don't like it at all. I don't like it for the SDR space. I don't like it for business because it makes people think that that is the standard. And if you actually look at the footnotes, I think Bridge Report's annual report is based on 300 companies a year, and the surveys of 300 companies a year, and the majority of those are going to be on the higher end tech industry side. These are not small business owners. These are not mom and pops who have been in business for 20 years and are trying to break into sales development, who don't have a sales org, have been, sole drivers, and have several $1 million in revenue annually, but have never broke into this traditional B2B marketplace. But they're looking at this insight like it is the gold standard, and it's not. And even still, the Bridge Report, I think, has it as the average quota is between, in today's market, like 14 to 20 appointments a month. 14 to 20,
no
I think it's...
right? It doesn't have context.
Well, the context, and it tries to break the context down a little bit, but look, at 14 to 20 appointments, that means Chili Piper, that means outreach. That means these organizations that have $1 million marketing budgets or name brands have the same quotas that a brand new company is coming to and saying, "Hey, I need you guys to set 15 appointments for me."
Numbers. They have free trials. They have
everything. They have a marketing. Yeah, they have a marketing department that can push out collateral, probably create custom, have every access.
Somebody to sign a $100,000 deal is expecting the same quota for SDRs that they could sign up free trial, right?
Yeah, so it's
not even fundamentally the same.
Because I think in the sales industry, you obviously have a lot of gurus pushing a message because their self-brand is obviously being emboldened, but I think it's setting improper expectations for what needs to be accomplished in this sales space. And sales is hard. Prospecting is even harder than sales itself. And I don't think there's a lot of awareness on that. And I think a lot of the easiest thing I will say is when you do have a good product market fit, when you do have a great product market fit, everything clicks and it just goes along. If you don't have a great product market fit, if you don't know what your go-to-market messaging is, then, you have to do almost discovery. You're going to have to pay to figure out, where do we fit? What is our message? How are we going to position ourselves versus the alternatives? And that's going to take time, and that's going to take money in the discovery process because you just haven't figured out your fit yet. And I think that's what more and more customers who are coming to us realize. I just had a great call today where they said that, like, hey, we don't know. We know it's going to be months before we might get appointments, but we have to start figuring it out. So I think they're starting to use...
Basically, people are starting to understand that a market validation campaign is very different from a campaign designed to have a planned ROI.
Right.
You mix the two...
And you got to think, there's two kind of classifications. There's companies who have well-oiled SDR machines. Fantastic. Keep doing what you do, breed it, hire, retain, turn out, promote, whatever you have to do. A lot of times those aren't an agency's client. You invested and you built and you want it internal. And there's reasons for that. And then you have this whole other market, which is the majority, which is, I don't know what an SDR is. There's still a lot of companies who have no clue what SDR means. 100%. All they know is we need appointments. And if you look at an agency like us and you look up our keywords and what's popular on websites, it's appointment setting. Set 100%. More appointments.
B2B lead gen and appointment setting, yeah.
Yeah, and that prospecting and an SDR's job is not just as simple as appointment setting. But that's what the majority of the market is still hunting for, because they know, hey, I need sales calls for our one salesperson so that we can close revenue. But yeah, there's a lot of knowledge.
So do you think, so let's even frame this as, so number one, lack of ROI and understanding the math of your business. Number two, adversarial relationship between internal and external, amplified by the fact that you don't have a plan. Number three is, you know you need revenue, but you actually don't understand the steps to get there, and just a lack of education in B2B lead gen. That's the biggest problem you see.
Yeah, I think, look, if you're a business owner, and if I'm speaking right to a small, medium-sized business owner where you're like, we need revenue, we need appointments, we know that this industry of SDRs is one that we can capitalize on, you're in a tough spot because there's a lot of agencies today. All of these SDRs who realize, hey, I can manage 2 or 3 clients myself and make more money than if I was a salaried and I can just be a 1099. This is fantastic. You have so many agencies then in 2014-15 that you're getting like the shining object. Hey, we'll set appointments. Sure, 15 to 20, great. We don't do guarantees, but 15 to 20, no problem. Just give us 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And then you bite on that because you have agencies like us who say, hey, I have no clue how many appointments I'll set for you. Yeah, the truth, but this is what we're going to do. We're going to do.
Problem number 4, wanting to be sold.
Wanting to be sold. Wanting what's unrealistic.
Mistake that buyers are making, they want to be sold. And right off, dude, I got the same story. I had a non-for-profit with a $50,000 ACV that was told by our account executive they get 35 meetings per month. They got 25. Their ROI was 5,000%. They still fired us.
All right.
Crazy. So keep going. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's right. And if you look at the G2 Cred reviews, if you look at the clutch reviews of some of these bigger agencies, one that I used to be a part of, you'll start to see, hey, the sales team promised us 1 million appointments and we barely got 1, or we barely got 2. Great marketing, great sales pitch, great. Yeah. Again, you want to be sold. You want, you can set me appointments and hit that number. This is fantastic. And you want them in an unrealistic time frame. So they're telling you that, we'll have it up and running in 10 days and you'll start to get appointments.
Every time I lose a customer to science, because I tell them the truth, I put an automatic follow-up email saying, how did the campaign going? And 100% of the time, it's a negative response.
And look, I won't, like, there's so many in the marketplace. To name one wouldn't be just, because this is, it's just the state of the nature. You want to be sold. We're sales agencies. We're going to sell you on what you want to hear. We're probably going to under-deliver.
I think we should tout the warning bell. If you are being sold that you will get more meetings based off no data, run away, you will fail. I'm comfortable saying that, Kevin.
Or force them to tie it in a guarantee in the agreement, right? If they're going to say it, then force them to do a guarantee in the agreement or a full refund, whatever you are. Sell it back, right? If they want your business that bad and are willing to tout it, then hold them accountable. Because it's just not
the truth is that when people go through this experience, they say to themselves, I've tried this before and it didn't work. And then they still go to agencies and they treat them even worse. So it's a problem, because what happens is when people hire sales reps and they fire it, they're like, the guy was a millennial, the guy was trading Bitcoin, it was John, it was bad. But when an agency fails, it is the whole industry. Whole industry. So it's like, I don't know my ROI. I don't have a plan. I don't treat you the same. I want to be lied to. And when they fail, you're all the same, right? So we can call it out. I'm like, all of these things, I think, hurt ultimately. They hurt. Comes back to the beginning of your conversation. They hurt the customer who wants a product, right? Because now money's being wasted that can go into a product to make it better. So it's like, this hurts businesses, not only financially, it hurts people's careers. What happens to an SDR who would be a great account executive, loves tech? He has a quota of 15 meetings, doesn't know why. Now he's got a bad experience. He's not in the industry anymore, right? I think these things kind of hurt everybody around, right? It makes sense. Top 1, ROI plan, adversarial, wanting to be lied to. What is the last and most common mistake that buyers make?
I think it's got to be, look, these are all pretty much interchangeable, 1 through 5, and you could probably replace them with another 1 through 5. But it's probably timeline. And look, I get it. There's urgency. There's urgency in every org, probably right now even more relevant, where we need revenue, we need sales, we need pipeline. But when you speed up outbound, it does nothing but hurt you. It burns your total addressable market. You spam. Google and Microsoft are incredibly good at locking out spam, bad actors today. 2014, 15, not the case. Email was king. I can blast 20,000 emails. They get opened, read, received, converted. The average number of appointments being set back then was 30, 40. Now it's 10 to 15. So times have just become much harder. But if your timeline is not realistic, then it's going to be a failure right out the gate. 90 days is pretty much, you have to go into open mind of any appointment set in a 90-day framework.
90 days is
fantastic.
Nothing.
Yeah.
I would go and I'd say 6 months to a year minimum.
Yeah. I would never sign an agreement with an agency for 6 months to a year. I would never sign an agreement with an agency for 3 months a lot of times, unless it's a great fit.
When I was a service company, customers that signed 6-month contracts with us were the happiest.
Yeah.
They just were, because they gave us enough. We had enough time to do what we did. So, I hear.
Yeah. I argue sometimes that if you're,
I never would being customer centric, but then there's also the, how do you help people from hurting themselves?
No, I get it, and you can say that Salesforce's model, or HubSpot has that model too, which is like, hey, if you don't sign a year contract, you're never going to see the value of it. You have to invest.
If you pick the right agency and the right product, it makes sense. Now, if you're
I argue that if you have the financial means to sign a 6-month contract and not worry about it, even if it doesn't produce, then you're probably a company that has a pretty good market fit anyway. I would say that in 2014, 15, 16, 17, probably a little bit different today, because today there's so many bad actor agencies who have 60, 70, 80% profit margins on any deal signed, even at a small amount, that I signed 6 months, but I'm going to do very little. I know it, I'll churn you, but there's so demand for people who want appointments that it's just become a bad market. And I always say, look, at the end of the day, it's SDRs, it's a sales development role. You would not hire a person with a guaranteed 6-month contract as an agency in sales.
You hire them with a plan, you give them the support, you give them training.
Oh, 100%. If you don't plan on giving somebody 3-6-month roadmap in a sales development agency world, then don't sign. Why are we even doing business? But if I'm not performing, if I don't fit, if you feel like we're doing a disservice after 1-2 months, you should have the ability to get out of a contract, just like you would fire an employee who doesn't show up for 2 weeks in a row. If I don't join client calls for 2 weeks or do this or that, you should have the same ability to exit. And I think that holds companies accountable. Do I think it's
Is it safe
fair?
to say that
No.
Leadium doesn't do any long-term contracts for those listeners?
Yeah, we do all month-to-month agreements. But again, that fluctuates back and forth.
I like that
depending on the
confident
time.
smile on your face when you said that.
Yeah, look, it keeps us on our toes. It means that every day we wake up saying, hey, it's a retention month for this client. How do we make sure we over-deliver?
Every month is customer success month.
And look, as a sales development, as an agency, you have to think of it not as an appointment setter. You have to think about it as a sales development department. And I always say on our sales calls that, hey, it's very likely that we will miss quota on a majority of months. That's just sales. Meaning if you're setting a quota for us for 15, there's a good chance we'll hit 13 or 14 or 12. What's our responsibility as an agency is to come to you with why. This is why it happened. This is why we missed quota. This is what we're doing to adjust it.
Experiment. It's a hypothesis.
Exactly.
Go to market and conclusion.
Right. So those are the five.
Fundamental nature, what you just said, is sales and marketing. And people don't realize that. That if you're not making assumptions that are based on data and you're either beating them, because if you beat them, you change your expectations. If you miss them, you change. So we also forget to say that it's a double-edged sword with expectations. They move around constantly, right?
Right.
Let's put this scenario. So now I get a good picture of what these bad customers, these bad actors look like. These guys that have great products, they hurt themselves. We want to do a good job of helping these people just not hurt themselves. What is the ideal customer, the ideal buyer, the ideal relationship? He walks through the door. What is he saying? What does he look like? Where you're just like, this is my guy, and I'm going to have a 10-year relationship with this guy or girl.
That's a great question. We had 10-year relationship. I think we're so experienced in this space that we would never project a 10-year relationship. I think we're thinking
that word, a long-term relationship.
Yeah, the way
a recurring customer.
I think we see it as if you get to 3 months, you'll get to 6. If you get to 6 months, you'll get to 9. If you get to 9, you'll get to 12. And if you get to 12, we'll hang on to you for as long as the market conditions allow it. And what I mean by that is we've been a part of 22 acquisitions to date. Just recently, is a week ago, one of our longstanding clients for the last 2.5 years was acquired. And unfortunately, during acquisitions, a lot of vendors don't make it through, and the majority of them don't, and we don't, because they already have existing infrastructures for it. And so we've just gotten very knowledgeable on, even if you're fantastic, you might not make it through. But still, what makes a great client for Leadium?
Let's start like this. Software or service?
That's a fantastic question. Software, if you have a good product market fit already, can translate well.
So product market fit, software company. What's their average contract value?
Contract values we don't care about, as long as it again, that goes back to the question of how do you value ROI, because you can have a $39.99 product, you know that, hey, we either have to hire someone, or for the same price as hiring someone, we can get everything, so that's instant ROI.
If you had to pick a sweet spot, what would it be? I'll give you a range. $10,000.
Yeah, no, this is a very relevant question, because today, actively, Sergey and I are saying, hey, we're minimizing our company footprint. We're getting rid of clients, and we'll go cold for months while we kind of reshift to the clients we want to work with. One is we're very good now with new outbound, and that new outbound is really what high-powered tech companies do.
We call that market validation?
That's video, that's GIFs embedded, that's very targeted LinkedIn, and just high touch personalized. And what we found is if you have a great visual product, sells fantastic. And by visual product, I mean I can get on Loom and demo it on what your website looks at. Think about Intercom. When Intercom first came about, I can very quickly go on your website on a personalized Loom video and show you what Intercom embedded on your website would look like. And that's visual to a buyer. And buyers are still, I say outbound is a digital acquisition channel, just like Instagram marketing, Facebook. Buyers are visual. I need to visualize it. And so software. If you have a software that's visual and like very quick to understand, and that aligns with a product market fit. It can't just be another thing or another one that does the same.
Painkiller, vitamin, candy. You got a candy, got a vitamin, we'll go with friends and family. Got a painkiller.
We'll sell great, can execute fantastic strategies, have a high conversion rate because of all of that. Service businesses, we're still a fan of. Service businesses, twofold reason. One is you have great margins, so you can pay for agencies. You're already usually an agency yourself, so you know the value. Your ROI or perception of ROI is already built in because you are a lot of times a service agency. Usually for that, you have to be playing in a niche. If you're a marketing or advertising agency and you play very well in a specific, like green energy, and hey, we're targeting green companies or doing this or that, and that's what we perfect, then it translates fantastic because all of your messaging and your go-to-market is built around that value proposition. So it's connecting with your users. So it's really all around, what is your go-to-market? Do you understand who you are?
I want to make you pick because you got the service company that focuses, right? And then you got the software company that demos really well. You got to pick one, service or software. What are you picking?
Service or software? I mean, software is still the leader in the space. I mean, we would just pick software.
That's fine. It's not a wrong answer.
No, I mean, it's not saying. Look, we always say if you have revenue and you want to build if you have
your
money.
Your same analogy about that company, that agency, is the same thing from CloudTask to Marketplace to you. That's why I'm trying to get you to speak. It's the same thing, niching down. Because I agree.
Yeah, it's hard. You. It's hard because we're industry.
Say yes to something. Like when I was a service company, I would answer the question the same way. Because you want to help people, right? But if you had a never-ending spigot of software companies with a $50,000 average contract value that demo well, like Intercom, you would take them all day long.
Oh, all day long. All day long.
The perfect world. But it's good to know. It's good to talk about, right? At the end of the day, I think it's the idea that all of us have to niche. I think even the software companies, the service companies, right? And that's the big point. This has been awesome. I'm like, look, I look to you as a leader in the industry. I always have. I've always reached out to you. I've always picked your brain. I still pick your brain. I still send you things, and I'm always asking you for your opinion. You're always honest. You're straightforward. You're on time. If people want to find out more about Leadium, where can they find you? And I know that you're more active now on LinkedIn because I'm commenting on your stuff, and your posts are basically blog articles that have facts, which I love. But where can people find you? How can they interact with you?
Yeah, Leadium.io is always a good one. We're updating our website. Look, we are sole owners, so we do everything. We're finishing our own design. We're finishing our own build for a new website, so that's going live. We'll have some fantastic content. We're launching a new podcast, again, kind of the future of sales right here, because as an agency, we got to think next step. We can't be doing, if you're seeing things already on LinkedIn, it's already too late. So our clients expect us to be a step ahead. That's why I say, hey, I see SDRs going out of fashion. And so that's kind of our mantra with the future of sales there. LinkedIn, we're very not outgoing in the social aspects. Sergey and I both.
WhatsApp number and cell phones. If he ignores you, you message me, and then I'll introduce to him.
Exactly. So WhatsApp, LinkedIn's probably the best place right now. If you do LinkedIn, it's the place where personal brand is still king, and we're getting bigger and bigger on that.
Kevin, you're awesome. I'm like, this is not going to be the only podcast that we have with you. Like I said before, I appreciate you being one of the top 20 agencies in our network, one of the top content contributors, and just an honest, clear, straightforward character in an otherwise sometimes cloudy space, which we're trying to make a little bit clear. So keep on rocking out, keep on craving clarity, keep on helping people, and we'll do our best to share all the content, all the tips, all the tricks that you got with the world, so that buyers come in educated. And buyers come in and they're our teammates, and they say, hey, these are our goals. These are our lives. Let's get this together, right? You charge X, Y, Z. Here's a bonus, right? I don't need to negotiate. I want to give you another $1,000 to do it right? That's where the industry needs to head to. It needs to head to the point where agencies and W-2s are treated alike, because we are, right? We're all humans behind different vehicles, right? So appreciate you coming on. Look forward to you coming on again. And that's it, man. I'll let you get back to leading the way with the future of sales and helping people, man.
Thanks, Amir. It was great being on.
All right, take care.